What if a civilization built palaces with running water 1,500 years before Rome and then vanished overnight? Or a people who smelted iron when Europeans still used stone axes, only to disappear without a single grave? And what about a city of 250,000 people, lying at the bottom of the sea, discovered only in the year 2000? Prepare to have your understanding of ancient history shattered, as we reveal 6 lost civilizations that vanished without a trace, including one city that lay hidden just 10 meters beneath the sea for 2,000 years. We like to think we know history: Egypt, Rome, Greece, paragraph, date, period. But between these grand names lie gaping holes. Entire nations were born, built, traded, fought, and then simply disappeared, as if someone erased them from the map with an invisible hand. Textbooks remain silent about them, not because they're hiding something, but because they simply don't know what to say. These civilizations lack a clear ending. There's no final battle, no named conqueror, no precise date of demise. They simply cease to exist, like a film reel snapping in a cinema, or a sentence begun but never finished. Our countdown begins at number 6, starting with an island that still holds an unsolved mystery. Crete, in the Mediterranean Sea, was home to a civilization 3,500 years ago that surpassed everything else in Europe in terms of development. These were the Minoans, a people named after the legendary king Minos, master of the labyrinth and the Minotaur. But the reality proved far more fascinating than any myth. Imagine the Palace of Knossos, a structure spanning 22,000 square meters, larger than 2 football fields, with 4 stories and 1,300 rooms. It featured a sophisticated water supply system with ceramic pipes and sewage, a millennium before the Romans built their famous aqueducts. There were bathrooms, light wells for ventilation, and frescoes of incredible quality, depicting dolphins, acrobats leaping over bulls, and women in open dresses with flowing hair. The Minoans controlled trade across the entire eastern Mediterranean. They had their own fleet, their own writing, and an art style unlike any other. Around 1600 BCE, on the island of Thera, now Santorini, 100 kilometers from Crete, one of the most powerful volcanic eruptions in human history occurred. Volcanologists estimate the blast to be approximately 7 on the Volcanic Explosivity Index, VEI, making it 100 times more powerful than the eruption of Vesuvius that buried Pompeii. The volcano ripped the island apart, ejecting about 60 cubic kilometers of rock into the atmosphere. Tsunamis up to 35 meters high, like a 10-story building, crashed onto the northern coast of Crete. Ash-covered fields for tens of kilometers. The Minoan fleet, which had dominated the eastern Mediterranean, was annihilated in a matter of hours. Yet strangely, the Minoans did not perish immediately. After the eruption, they rebuilt their palaces, continued to trade, and managed to stay afloat for another 1.5 centuries. Then, around 1450 BCE, they vanished. Their palaces were destroyed, their writing disappeared. The Mycenaean Greeks arrived and settled Crete as if it were an empty house. What happened during those final 1.5 centuries? Who delivered the final blow to a civilization that had survived a super eruption? Was it an invasion, a rebellion, an epidemic? Scholars debate, but there is no answer. Most importantly, Linear A, the Minoans' primary script, remains undeciphered to this day. The key to their demise may be locked within tablets we cannot read. Our 5th spot takes us to a place that should not exist at all. Nabta Playa, in the heart of one of Earth's most desolate deserts, in southwestern Egypt. Today, it is the arid, scorched Sahara Desert, with no water, no shade, and not a single tree for hundreds of kilometers. Summer temperatures soar above 50 degrees Celsius. But 7,000 years ago, this very spot was a lake, a green savanna, teeming with herds of gazelles and people. In 1974, American archaeologist Fred Wendorf discovered a megalithic complex here, a circle of vertically standing stones. Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Stonehenge. Yes, but Nabta Playa is 2,000 years older than Stonehenge. Stones weighing several tons were arranged so that 2 of them pointed precisely to the sunrise on the summer solstice, June 21st. This is the oldest known astronomical calendar on the planet. But the stones are just the beginning. Beneath them, archaeologists found buried sculptures of cows, carved from solid stone blocks and interred 2 to 3 meters deep. And why? Cows in Nabta Playa were not merely livestock, they were sacred. This is possibly the earliest known example of a cattle cult, which would later transition into ancient Egypt in the form of the goddess Hathor. The people of Nabta Playa were not primitive nomads. They built stone structures, observed the stars, performed complex rituals, and organized elaborate burials. Some researchers, including astrophysicist Thomas Brophy, assert that the Nabta Playa stones mirror the positions of the stars in Orion's belt and the Big Dipper, as they appeared 6,000 to 7,000 years ago. Official science approaches these calculations with caution, yet the fact remains: someone in the Sahara, 7 millennia ago, looked at the sky and built stone maps of the stars. Around 4800 BCE, the monsoon rains that had nourished the lake and savanna for millennia shifted south. This was a slow process, not a sudden catastrophe, but a gradual decline over centuries. The lake dried up, the grass withered and turned to dust. The gazelles departed, and the people followed. The stone calendar remained, standing alone in the center of a land that became one of the Earth's most lifeless deserts. Where did the builders of Nabta Playa go? One hypothesis suggests they moved east, to the Nile Valley, where they laid the foundations for what we now call ancient Egypt. The cult of the cow became the cult of Hathor. Their star observations formed the basis of the Egyptian calendar. Their megalithic construction evolved into the pyramids. If this is true, then Egyptian civilization began not on the banks of the Nile, but in the sands of the Sahara, 2,000 years before the first pyramid. Proving this remains impossible for now. The desert guards its secrets more securely than any vault. In fourth place is a civilization discovered by chance, one that completely overturned all previous notions of ancient Africa. Nigeria, 1928. A tin mine near the village of Nok in Kaduna State. A miner was digging soil when he struck a strange object, a terracotta head. It featured almond-shaped eyes, an elaborate hairstyle, and an unforgettable expression. The miner took the head home as a curiosity. 15 years later, in 1943, archaeologist Bernard Fagg learned of the find and realized it was no mere curio. It was a key to an unknown civilization. Excavations revealed its immense scale, an area the size of a small European country, encompassing Kaduna, Plateau, and Nasarawa states, was dotted with terracotta sculptures, life-sized heads, figures of people and animals, even a man in a canoe carrying cargo, possibly the oldest depiction of river trade in West Africa. These artifacts date from 900 BCE to 200 CE, spanning 1,100 years of existence. But most astonishingly, Fagg discovered 13 iron smelting furnaces near the village of Taruga. Carbon dating of the charcoal from these furnaces yielded dates as early as 500 BCE. Nok stands as one of the first, and quite possibly, the very first civilization in sub-Saharan Africa to master iron smelting. And here's what's crucial: they skipped the Bronze Age entirely, transitioning directly from stone to iron, bypassing copper and bronze. This is an almost unheard-of leap. How did they achieve it? Did they invent the technology themselves, or was it introduced to them? Microscopic analysis of the clay revealed that all the terracotta sculptures across this vast territory were made from the same source of clay, which has yet to be found. This suggests a centralized production system, perhaps an artisan guild. They possessed a complex judicial system with separate courts for civil and criminal cases, advanced agriculture cultivating millet, sorghum, and cowpea, and trade networks extending to the Atlantic coast. And then, silence. After 200 CE, the quantity of pottery and terracotta in the soil layers sharply declines, and the Nok people simply vanished. No war, no conqueror, no plague. Was it climate change, resource depletion, or an epidemic that left no trace, because Nigeria's acidic soil destroyed all bones? No one knows. 1,100 years of civilization, yet not a single answer to the question of why it ended. The bronze medal in our ranking, third place, goes to a civilization without a single weapon. Peru, the Supe Valley, 80 kilometers north of Lima. In 2001, archaeologist Ruth Shady published excavation results that completely rewrote the chronology of the New World. The city of Caral. It is 5,000 years old, a contemporary of the Egyptian pyramids, making it the oldest city in both Americas. Imagine 6 stone pyramids, the largest measuring 150 meters long and 20 meters high, along with an amphitheater, residential quarters, irrigation canals, and ceremonial plazas. The population is estimated to have been up to 3,000 people in the city itself and up to 20,000 in surrounding settlements. All of this existed 2,000 years before the Incas, but the most astonishing discovery is something else entirely. Throughout all the years of excavations in Caral and its vicinity, not a single weapon has been found. Not one. No arrowheads, no spears, no blades, no defensive walls, no moats, no towers. The Caral civilization, by all accounts, was peaceful. Instead of weapons, they had musical instruments. Flutes crafted from the bones of pelicans and condors, adorned with carvings. Instead of wars, they engaged in trade, spondylus shells from the Pacific coast, feathers from the Amazon jungle, cotton and gourds from the valley. Their exchange network stretched for hundreds of kilometers. In July 2025, Ruth Shady presented a new city of the same culture, Penico, in the same Supe Valley, featuring 18 structures, including ceremonial temples and residential complexes. Caral is not an isolated phenomenon, but part of an entire civilization spread across the valley. How did a society without an army endure for 1,000 years? Why build pyramids if not to display military might? How was power maintained? Through music, trade, or rituals. Around 1800 BCE, Caral became deserted. Its people left. Was it an earthquake, a drought, or did they simply migrate? The stone pyramids still stand in the valley, silent and empty. Who built this peaceful civilization without a single sword? And where did they go? Second place, the silver in our ranking, goes to a people whom Aristotle linked to Atlantis, the south of Spain, at the mouth of the Guadalquivir River, in the province of Cadiz. Here, according to the descriptions of the Greek historian Ephorus, in the 6th century BCE, stood the city of Tartessos, the capital of a civilization of the same name, a prosperous market trading in tin, gold, and copper. The Tartessians controlled the metallurgy of southwestern Iberia, from the rich mines of Rio Tinto to the Atlantic coast. Phoenicians brought goods to them through Gibraltar. Greeks described Tartessos as a land of incredible wealth. And then, somewhere between the 6th and 4th centuries BCE, Tartessos disappeared. The city has not been found, the port has not been found, and the people dissolved into history. Aristotle mentioned the Tartessos River, originating in the Pyrenees. Pausanias wrote of Tartessian bronze, but physically, nothing. Centuries of searching yielded only scattered finds, golden amulets in Camas, near Seville, in 1958, and isolated inscriptions in a language that is still not fully deciphered, with fewer than 100 inscriptions and graffiti known. Then, in April 2023, a breakthrough. Archaeologists from the Merida Institute of Archaeology, part of the Spanish National Research Council, excavated 5 life-size stone busts at the Casas del Turunuelo site in Badajoz province. These are the first-ever depictions of people from the Tartessian culture. For 2,500 years, not a single face, and suddenly, 5. 2 busts are almost perfectly preserved. Female faces with hoop earrings and intricate hairstyles, stylistically reminiscent of Near Eastern sculpture. A third bust depicts a warrior in a helmet. All were found in a sealed pit within a sanctuary, mixed with the bones of sacrificial animals, the largest mass sacrifice found in the Western Mediterranean. The Casas del Turunuelo building itself is the best preserved ancient structure in the Western Mediterranean, with 2 stories and unbaked brick walls standing up to 5 meters high. Before this discovery, it was believed that the Tartessians were an aniconic culture, meaning they depicted gods only through plants, animals, and sacred stones. The busts changed everything. Who were these women? Goddesses, queens, priestesses, and why were all Tartessian monuments, contributory, Nabta, Turunuelo, deliberately burned to the ground? Someone systematically destroyed their own sanctuaries. Why? Was it a ritualistic self-destruction, a final act of faith before an inevitable end. The Tartessians didn't just disappear, they appear to have annihilated themselves. But why? Even Aristotle could not tell us. Finally, the absolute leader of our ranking, in first place, a city that lay at the bottom of the sea for 2,000 years, and which we knew nothing about until the year 2000. Thonis-Heracleion. In the Mediterranean Sea, Abu Qir Bay, 8 kilometers from the modern coast of Egypt, at a depth of just 10 meters. Not kilometers, not hundreds of meters, but 10 meters. The depth of an ordinary swimming pool. Imagine diving into the murky Mediterranean water, descending 10 meters, and seeing a city. Stone walls, the columns of the Temple of Amun, gigantic 5-meter-tall statues of pharaohs lying on their sides, granite stelae with hieroglyphs, gold jewelry, bronze ritual vessels, and 64 ships, from trading barges to warships, scattered across the bottom of a harbor that was once the main maritime gateway to Egypt. In 2000, French underwater archaeologist Franck Gaudiot discovered Thonis-Heracleion. The city, which the Greeks called Heracleion and the Egyptians Thonis, served as Egypt's primary port from the 6th to the 1st centuries BCE, even before Alexander the Great founded Alexandria. All goods traveling from the Mediterranean to Egypt passed through Thonis. Herodotus described the Temple of Heracles in this city, and its population may have reached 250,000 people. In the late 2nd or early 3rd century CE, Thonis sank beneath the waves. The cause was a combination of earthquakes, rising sea levels, and soil liquefaction. The city stood on unstable river deposits in the Nile Delta. The land literally liquefied beneath its foundations. Temples, houses, warehouses, docks, everything sank to the bottom in a matter of years, perhaps even months, and it was forgotten for 2,000 years. Each season of underwater excavations brings new discoveries. Gold coins, amulets, statuettes, weapons, anchors, and pottery are continuously found. In 2019, a 25-meter-long warship, crushed by a fallen stone block from a temple, was raised. It sank directly during the catastrophe, its crew unable to escape. In 2021, an entire quarter with Greek warehouses was discovered. Amphorae of wine and oil stood in rows, as if on store shelves, only underwater and beneath a 2,000-year-old layer of silt. The submerged city covers an area of approximately 11 square kilometers, which is larger than the center of Paris within its boulevard périphérique. According to various estimates, only 5 to 10% has been excavated. 90% of Thonis-Heracleion still lies beneath the silt, untouched, waiting. A city with a population of 250,000, the main port of the greatest civilization of antiquity, described by Herodotus, marked on ancient maps. And we didn't know where it was until the year 2000. It lay just 10 meters underwater, 8 kilometers from the shore. What else have we not found? How many more cities sleep at the bottom? Not of oceans, but of shallow bays, coastal shoals, and river deltas. There is no answer. But 10 meters of water is not a great depth. It's a distance any diver can cover in a minute. For 2,000 years, we sailed over this city and had no idea it was there. Fishermen cast their nets directly over the roof of the Temple of Amun. Minoans, Nabta Playa, Caral, Tartessos, Thonis-Heracleion. 6 points on the map. 6 civilizations, 6 unfinished stories. Some built palaces with plumbing and sewage, and were erased by a volcano and an unknown enemy. Others erected a stone calendar in the middle of a green Sahara and left when the desert swallowed their world. A third people smelted iron, bypassing bronze, and vanished without leaving even bones. A fourth created a civilization without a single weapon and abandoned their pyramids in silence. A fifth burned their own temples and disappeared, taking the secret of Atlantis with them. A sixth, the largest port of the ancient world, simply sank in 10 meters of water and was forgotten for 20 centuries. We tend to think that great civilizations leave grand traces, but sometimes greatness lies precisely in the absence of traces, in a silence no one can explain, an empty space where life once thrived. And the question that hangs in the air, if these 6 peoples could disappear without a trace, completely, forever, what prevents us from disappearing? Which of these 6 civilizations astonished you the most? Let us know in the comments below, especially if you're hearing about any of them for the very first time.